Hello, I'm Brian Malow, and we are coming to you live from Lindau, Germany. And this week is the 7th Lindau Meeting on Economic Sciences. And along with the 19 Nobel laureates, we have 330 young economists from 60 different countries. And joining me right now is Yannai Gonczarowski.
Perfect.
Perfect?
Yeah.
And you're at Harvard.
Yeah.
In what department? Because you're not just an economist.
I'm an assistant professor of economics and computer science at Harvard.
Economics and computer,
And computer science. Yeah.
And,
I'm actually the first in the history of Harvard to have been appointed to both of these departments.
Oh, excellent.
So great things are happening there in that
Okay.
intersection.
So, and let me flip, I just want to show that the Inselhalle, the site of most of the programming, almost all of it, is the conference center right back there. But we're over here by the Lindau Nobel Laureate Pier, which is relatively new. It's only started to be, was only built a few years ago. And
really?
Yeah, and we're gonna just take a little walk along it. The pier has these slats, and there's a lot of blank ones still, but each slat has the name of a Nobel laureate and the prize they won and the year they won it. So Yannai and I are gonna take a little stroll on the pier and talk for a few minutes. So come along, you don't really have much choice.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's head that way. Let's get a shot of the pier first. So that's what we're looking at. The pier goes out there, and there's a section over there. And let's just take a stroll.
Yeah.
It's right here, beautiful. So Yannai,
Yeah.
You're both a computer scientist and an economist.
Yeah.
Which came first?
The computer science came first, but it doesn't mean that it's the main one.
Yeah. You know what? We can show them since these are very visible
Yeah.
with this lighting. If you excuse there. This is what these slats look like. And there's still some blanks because we expect there to be future laureates. So, and you said, we might talk about a couple laureates that we couldn't find one that we were looking for because there are so many.
Yeah.
But we'll come to that. Let's talk about the kind of what's your research like? Like, what's your area of specialty?
So I'm a theoretical economist, mostly, not only, but mostly, which means that I try to develop a mathematical foundation for mathematical phenomena.
Okay. I didn't really even know till this week that, like the natural sciences, that there are both theoretical and, would you say, empirical or experimental?
Applied, maybe.
Applied economists. So that's interesting. And tell me more about like, did you always know that you wanted to be an economist?
So really, no, actually. I think that in high school, had you asked me, will I ever want to be an economist? I probably would have told you something like, economics sounds like accounting or something, which some people may love, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's, really not for me. And I was into math and into computer science, and it took me too long to understand that theoretical economics is as, mathy and formal and cool as all of these, but it has this whole other side of connecting to the real world around us, analyzing things around us, explaining things around us, and even improving things around us, which is something that a lot of my research is about.
Is economics a science?
Economics is 100% a science. Yeah.
I have this, I don't know much about economics, and my exposure to all this week has been really interesting. And I have a hard time wrapping my mind around the idea that there's been so much this complex mathematics, like these models, and that how is it really possible to model human behavior with math in the same way that physics and get the same kind of results?
So I'll tell you what, even when you do it in physics, if you do, the high school level physics, you don't model each atom, you don't model each particle. You model something that behaves close enough to give you a prediction. You know what I mean? And if you take, to the very small level or to the very large level, then the approximations that you have in high school physics will stop working. And I think it's much the same in any other science. You can never model everything. So the idea is to come up with models that explain something, give you some insight, give you some prediction. And economics in that sense is very much an observation, very much a science. You know, you start with something that you want to explain. You try to think about what could cause it. You write down a mathematical model, which is, you know, it's a whole challenging task, which is, you know, beyond the math. And then when you have the mathematical model written down, then, you know, you start with the math. So it's all the complexities and beautiful complexities, you know, for me of math, preceded by the challenging but super gratifying, if you get it right, task of trying to capture nature with math, like in other disciplines.
That might be an odd question that I haven't asked anyone else. Are you ever a fan of any science fiction?
Yeah.
Isaac Asimov?
Star Trek for me.
Star Trek, because there's this famous trilogy, like one of probably the most famous trilogy in science fiction that Isaac Asimov wrote in maybe the 40s or 30s. It's called the Foundation trilogy. And there's an idea that I realized that so often you hear scientists say they were inspired by science fiction. And then I realized, I wonder if any economists, because the idea in that is a guy, is a field, I forget what they call it, psychohistory or something, and he has predicted the course of human history out thousands of years.
Oh, wow.
Not individual behavior, but some stuff pretty specific, but the sweep of history, and it's all about, he's used math to predict what's going to happen and then do things that will be necessary to help us through some difficult times. So it's like the course of galactic evolution or something. I just wondered if any economists...
I think that the ability to use math to this precision so long in advance, you know, that's like... you know, some other sciences complain about their depiction in movies. So that's, you know, it's like when in some, you know, movie from the 90s, you see like some footage from some street camera, and then, you know, they're in front of the computer and they say, let's enhance.
Oh, enhance.
And suddenly, you know, enhance.
You know, so that viral video?
Yeah. So it's you know, or it's like in biology, some crappier sci-fi that I watch whenever my wife goes by and sees, what are they talking about, alterations in DNA and stuff like that. So it's getting anything in that precision is along these lines. But
that would be great to find an economist that really knows that series. You know, it's funny. It's like, here's a computer science version, that the remake, David Cronenberg's remake of The Fly, when he's like, he gets into a teleporter and there's a fly and the computer like impossibly says what happened. It goes, well, it almost, not in natural English, but almost says that it mated the two, like, you know, like computers, that's not the kind of detail you get back from a computer. You have to interpret what it, Well, anyway, let's come back to this. You're now an assistant professor at Harvard, but tell me about your academic path. You're from Israel,
So
right?
I'm from Israel. When I started my bachelor's degree, I started actually two very different undergrad studies. One of them was computer science, and the other one was classical singing, opera.
Really?
Really. So, and after my first year in computer science, I realized that, you know, these awful math first year courses that everyone complain about because they're too formal, etc., those are the courses that I exited with the biggest smile. So I added math into the mix, and I ended up finishing an undergrad in computer science math, and separately from that, opera, classical singing. And then I still wasn't sure what I'm going to do with my life, so I did in Israel, much like in Europe, unlike in the US, before your undergrad and your PhD studies, you do a master's. You do a master's degree. It's equivalent to the first year or two of a PhD in the US. So I did in parallel a master's in math and a master's in classical singing, opera.
Wow.
And in each of these, actually both in my undergrad and in my master's, I started looking at some, mathematical problem that, had nothing to do with economics, and I ended up analyzing it through tools of game theory, which is, one of the mathematical foundations of economics. And once that happened twice, I figured, well, maybe that's the thing I should study. So I did a PhD in math and computer science, studying game theory from the mathematical side and from an algorithmic perspective as well.
Okay.
And throughout my PhD, I realized more and more that I very much like this modeling angle of economics as well, and became drawn more and more to economics, and here I am.
Yeah. So how long have you been at Harvard?
So I've been at Harvard 1 year. Before that, I did a postdoc at Microsoft Research. They have a research lab in Cambridge next to MIT, and that was really nice as well. And yeah, I'm at Harvard now at both departments, and I'm having a blast.
Yeah. So let's talk about the meeting some, and I will ask you what some highlights have been for you, but I know one of them must be that you were one of the 60 young economists who had the opportunity to present your research in a 6-minute version of your research to your colleagues and to a front row that had 3 Nobel laureates, right? So
indeed.
Tell me, well, first of all, tell me about the experience, but tell me what the research was about.
So my research, I try to, so the funny thing is, math is math. Computer science, theoretical computer science is math. Economic theory is math. And yet those are very different kinds of math. What do I mean by that? Obviously they're all math, you write proofs. But each of them throughout the years has refined different mathematical tools. So for example, in economics, many times we ask, what's the optimal solution to some situation? Or does there exist a solution? Or is it unique? And things like that. In computer science, we would ask, what's the complexity of a certain situation? It could be, complexity of runtime complexity, how long would it take a computer to do something? It could be communication complexity, how many bits do you have to transmit between different different participants in some situation. It could be various others. Now there's a lot of machine learning going around. Could be sample complexity. How many different images or samples from something do you need to do to train your computer to do something? And with this look at complexity comes also a look at approximations. Can you get communication complexity that's maybe not optimal, but close to it, good enough? Or can you get, some other kind of complexity that's close, but maybe designing some auctions to optimally, be completely optimal for the buyers that you're facing, and for whoever you're facing is a super, super hard task. But maybe, getting to 90% of the optimality is actually not that complex. So computer science is very much, the theory of computer science, very much a science of approximations and complexity, which is an angle that usually is not traditionally explored in economic theory. So in my PhD, for example, I looked at the complexities and approximations in various economic institutions, from auctions all the way to school choice mechanisms that, if you live in a large city and you need to fill out a form with preferences, and then they do some matching between students and schools, that's also an economic problem that actually won a Nobel Prize a few years ago for economic solutions to these. So I try to, having been trained, first of all, as a computer scientist, that is in some sense, my native language, these tools. So I try to take these tools, or tools from cryptographic theory, or tools from various other distributed computing, various other things in computer science, and say, so we have these tools. These tools are usually not used in economic theory. Let's take some really hard problem in economic theory. Maybe these tools can tell us something new about it. So that's That's where I come in.
Okay. And so, I mean, you only had 6 minutes
Yeah.
to talk about it. Tell me about,
That
so what kind of
specific thing.
feedback did you get? Do you know what time it is?
I think we have time. It's 5:45.
Okay. I have to be over there at 6:30.
So-
I just
so-
wondered why the music was already starting.
So for example, what I presented here in these 6 minutes was
I really want to know,
okay.
like, again, and what kind of feedback you got. Like, we don't have to go deep into the,
Yeah.
because I found it pretty technical.
okay. So let me go broader a little bit. So economics is very good at auction design, but in some settings you want to keep auctions pretty private. You don't necessarily want the buyers to get all the information from the auctioneer, or the auctioneer to get all the information from buyers, even in retrospect. So what I talked about here was how to incorporate tools from cryptography into the economic analysis of auctions to get all the good stuff that we know how to do with economics, but with better privacy guarantees.
Okay. And tell me about the experience of presenting with 3 Nobel laureates in the front row,
Yeah, so-
and then what kind of feedback did you get?
So that's an incredible experience. That's like getting all of the it's basically getting, like, if you would let me handpick my audience from the entire population of people living right now.
Yeah.
It would be this audience.
Really? Yeah.
So that's
Those specific laureates even?
those
Or this room
if,
full of
if
economists?
you let me add like 2 more laureates,
Yeah,
but those 3 would be part of the 5.
Yeah.
For sure.
Excellent.
And so I mean, you had in front of me Roger Myerson, who won the Nobel Prize for auction design.
Okay.
So and I'm telling him about innovations of mine in auctions. So that's it's incredible to have this
Yeah.
experience.
And that's great. Let me ask you, let's talk about the meeting a
Yeah.
little bit. And how did you first hear about it? Like something like some people that watch might be potential future attendees. And how did you hear about it? And
So actually, I'm quite embarrassed that I didn't know about it for quite a long time. Even after, it was earlier this year, after I was already in Harvard, I suddenly get an email from one of my PhD advisors in Jerusalem, a few years after I finished that. And he told me, listen, there's this meeting and they're asking me for nominations. I think it's going to be good for you. What do you think?
Yeah.
And this is, let me parenthetically say that that's what a PhD advisor should be. A PhD advisor, the commitment of the best PhD advisors that I know does not end when you walk out of the door.
Nice.
They're your mentors
Yes.
for life. And every now and then when I have some new research I'm excited about, I would call my advisors and tell them, listen, could I tell you something cool?
yeah.
And they're always there for me, and
That's
that's
great.
what I aspire to do for my students as well.
Okay.
So after that, I just wanted to say that because this kind of, we hear a lot on Twitter and other places that there are sometimes advising relationships that are not the best,
Yeah.
but there are ones that really change your life in the best way
Excellent.
possible.
So he brought it to your attention. And
Yeah.
Tell me about before you got here, any kind of anticipations, and were there any specific laureates you were curious and excited to possibly meet?
I looked. There were quite a few of them. It's at least 6 that I was like super hoping to meet specifically. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that was awesome, and the whole. I told you that my PhD was a bit non-standard for economics. It was more from the computer science math side. So for me, this is an opportunity to meet my young colleagues, the top of my young colleagues from around the world. This is like, I feel like in these 4 days, I've made up for 6 years of missing networking. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
this is truly incredible and so useful. I mean, I've met at least 2 young scientists here that I didn't know beforehand, and I'm hopeful that with them, at the very least, this will lead to some scientific collaboration, maybe with more, but with them, I can say there are two here that I'd gamble on something coming out of this.
That's excellent. And that's right at the core of the mission of the meeting, which educate, inspire, connect.
Exactly.
And not only that, but kind of correlating with the story you just told about the role of your PhD advisor continuing. After tomorrow, like today in the parlance of the meeting, you're a young economist. But this time tomorrow, you'll be an alumnus.
Yeah.
And part of the alumni network. And in that same way, you can continue and you can mentor and you can keep connecting. Which is a great thing.
I hope,
is so unique.
Yeah. This has been such, it's sometimes, in 3 days, you accumulate connections and ideas and insights that it's going to take quite a while to process.
Yeah.
So having the alumni network during this processing, and as you said, even beyond, for advising, maybe some student comes to me and is interested in something that is not my specialty. We each have specialties. No one knows everything. This is an opportunity to be able to reach out to people, to reach out to colleagues, to better to be able to connect our students to them also if needed.
Excellent.
So this is the alumni network is something I'm super excited about, both very short term and very long term and in between.
Even more so, there was 2 years ago, because it had to be a virtual meeting in 2020. There were some other activities invented for it, and including this sci-a-thon, which was like a hackathon, and over 48 hours, teams created these projects. Well, some of those projects were just for the 48 hours, but some have the support of Lindau, and one is called the Mentoring Hub. And you'll be told more about it, because right now it's only available to the Alumni Network. But in the Mentoring Hub, you could be a mentor or seek a mentor.
Wow.
And so they hope that hopes to have a bright future.
So that actually is amazing, because one of the nice things, you have here the whole gamut of young economists, from very, very early stage students to people like me and my colleagues who are already advising students and faculty at universities. So this would let us, I think, so here we have both kinds of conversations, but the alumni network would also allow us to continue both kinds of conversation, both with younger students, if they ever want anything. That's a great way to reach out to us. And both with my colleagues at other universities.
So you had these anticipations coming to the meeting. Now, did you get here? Did you get to meet some of those? I mean, some of them you got to be judged by.
Some of them I got to be. It's not judged. It's got good comments for.
Great.
Actually, one of my favorite comments there was from one of these 3 laureates who told me that my lecture convinced him that these tools that I'm working with are indeed relevant to economics, which is. So that nice was comment. I think my favorite comment. Yeah.
Excellent. And
so yes, but meeting everyone was really amazing. Both, as I said, laureates, colleagues, students. From each of these things, you learn a lot. You get a lot of new ideas.
Yeah. You told me that there were a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about economics in general, and is there something that you wish the public better understood about economics?
So I think that there are 2 things in general. First of all is specifically about my field, theoretical economics. If you're interested in mathematics or in computer science or in one of these, in anything in between, then theoretical economics is, more than enough to satisfy every mathematical curiosity you would ever have, and it would take it to a whole new level, connecting it to the real world. So this is something I wish someone would have told me when I was an undergrad or in high school. So if this is an opportunity to tell anyone who's listening to us that if you're interested in mathematical sciences, economic theory is something you should definitely take a look at. That's one thing. The other thing is that, there's a lot of, sometimes you see on Twitter, the economists they want this. The economies have this. Economists have this agenda. The economists are all pro this or against this, etc. We're not pro or against anything. Our job is to help decision makers by making projections. We're not going to tell them you should set the income tax on this percent or on this percent, but we can tell them if you set it this high, this is what's going to happen. If you set it this high, that's what's going to happen. So we're giving them tools, but I would very much like the public to understand that we're there for the prediction support. We're not, the political decisions are up to the politicians and to their constituents. We're there to support the process. I feel like too many, somehow many people in the general public feel like we have our own agenda that we try to stick in, and that's really not the case.
I think there's something slightly analogous to the natural sciences, where take something like climate change, where the scientists are saying, look, this is what's happening.
Exactly.
And we need to do something, but the exact things we do, that's policy that needs to be discussed.
They can tell you each policy item, if you put it in, here's what we projected, how we projected could or could not help. But it's saying that climate change is real is not a political opinion. It's just saying that vaccines work. It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
It's science.
Yeah.
So, great. Now, maybe just finally, we were looking for a couple names on here, but we didn't find them all. But you said you might have an anecdote, and one is that about a fellow Israeli who's a laureate here.
Yeah, so one of the laureates, I was fortunate enough to know him in advance, but it was really great to see him again and have a chat with him. Is Robert Aumann, who was my advisor's advisor.
Yeah.
So he's someone told, I told this to someone earlier
today. The advisor that contacted you, the same?
Yeah, the same advisor contacted me. So I spoke with someone today, so he told me, actually, he's your grand advisor, which is, I like that.
That's nice, grand advisor.
So he's my grand advisor, and seeing him here was really great. He was one of the three, by the way, who watched my presentation, which was like a circle coming together for me, or maybe I'm not using the right English proverb for that. But other, there is, fresh with still the paint still in, or the sticker still in. We have
yeah, let's see if I can flip this.
We have Paul Milgram here, who won the prize.
Let's get our shadows out
in
of the way.
2020, which we were all thrilled about. So 2022, it means he's here for the first time, and this is the 2020 is when he got his prize. Also for
because although this economics meeting typically would happen every 3 years, but because of the pandemic, it's been 5 years.
It's been 5 years, yeah.
So he won in 2020, and this was his first time here, which is why. So these, every Nobel laureate is not represented on the peer. These are all laureates that have been here. Yeah. So he's here for the first time, and he's been added to the peer.
Yeah. So he won again. He's one of the economists who won his prize for auction design. He's one of the. His research is the one of the foundational thing upon which much of my research is built.
Okay.
So and having all of these people here together, all of these Nobel Prize winners for auctions at one place, talking to all of them at the same time is quite remarkable. I mean, you're walking here, you're reading these names, and you feel like it's such inspiring to feel like you're walking among all of these names, not just who are here, but who are here at every year. You're like walking the path that these giants who are the inspiration of all of us have walked.
Economists, chemists, physicists, and medical researchers. Medicine and physiology is the other one. So that's great. Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up, because I think we've been talking for quite a while, and
I'm having fun, so I didn't keep time.
Me too. I do have something coming up, because the next thing that we have, let's see, right now, a lot of the people are off on these little science walks.
Science walks. Yeah, we were each. That was also one of the nice things they arranged. Some people are more shy, less shy, etc. So they arrange for these small group meetings. So some of my fellow participants are here in science walks, which means that they're taking, a casual stroll with a Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah.
And
we're sort of doing a science walk
we're
while
sort
they're
of doing
the
a science
walk.
walk.
Yeah,
Earlier today had a science lunch, which is, me and
Right.
a couple of my fellow economists having lunch with a Nobel laureate.
Yeah.
So, a casual lunch with just conversation, and that's,
Yeah.
that's really, it just shows you, these meetings, every day when I'm done for the day, it dawns on me again how much planning went into every single detail here, down to the maybe some people are more introverts and less extroverts, so let's arrange these small lunches and science walks so that they get some interaction as well. All of these things, it's like you can really see that this event is all about let's build the most optimal event you can for young economists to take the most out of, which is really, I'm grateful for that.
Yes. Well, that's a great final note.
Indeed.
And thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. And I was going to say that coming up next, although it won't be broadcast to the public, is our Bavarian evening.
Indeed.
And the idea there is to give everyone a taste of the local culture. You're here for a few days, but that was the music we've heard was the musicians preparing and
These are now the church bells, I guess, declaring 6 p.m.
Yeah. So we'll have a great evening tonight, and then tomorrow we'll go to Lindau Island for our final day, which only consists of one panel discussion, and then a picnic and hanging out and just more
having
socializing.
this beautiful Lake Constance in the
Yes.
background. Yeah.
And also it's a cruise ship over there and back with all of us on the ship. It's
I
really
hear the
fun
island
last
is
day.
also really beautiful.
It is. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And we'll be doing more of this from the 7th Lindau Meeting on Economic Science.